United States and Russian sources are telling NBC News that Russian authorities may be searching for as many as 4 female terrorists now dispatched to carry out Olympics-related attacks. At least one of those women is believed to already be in the Sochi area, and NBC News has obtained a document circulating around Sochi that gives a detailed description of this woman. Here it is right here. All of this follows yesterday's release of a chilling video from an Islamic militant group threatening to attack the Olympics. In the video, 2 men also claim responsibility for last month's terror attacks that killed 34 people in Volgograd. Meanwhile, the Olympic torch relay passed through Volgograd today as it heads towards Sochi, some 400 miles away. NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel is live now in Moscow. Richard, let's start with the suspected female terrorists here who are being sought. What more can you tell us about them?
Well, we know the most about the one woman whose picture has been released to police. That wanted poster is being circulated at airports, in hotels, a train station in Sochi. She is 22 years old, according to her police file. She is the widow of a Islamic militant who was killed about 6 or 7 months ago in Dagestan, killed by Russian security forces. And after he was killed, she allegedly became a so-called Black Widow, a militant who would be used as a suicide bomber, in part to avenge her husband's death. She, however, is only one of the suspects that Russian officials, we are told, are looking for. There are at least 3 others, maybe not in Sochi. We don't exactly know where they might be, but we have been told that Russian officials do believe that the woman, the 22-year-old whose poster they're circulating, did enter the Sochi area earlier this month on either the 11th or 12th of January.
Richard Engel for us in Moscow. Richard, thank you. I want to bring in former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino, who was involved in security at the 2002 Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City. Also, the author of Life Inside the Bubble, Why a Top-Ranked Secret Service Agent Walked Away from It All. We should mention here that he's also a Republican candidate for Congress in Maryland. Let's start with this news that Russian authorities are now looking for as many as 4 female terrorists dispatched to strike at the Olympics. Wouldn't it be extremely difficult to smuggle bombs or weapons into Sochi, or am I oversimplifying?
Well, you're not oversimplifying, but no, it's not that difficult, because these things can be taken as in pieces. They don't have to be taken in entire parts. And remember, a lot of these ingredients are commercially available. If you're looking to put together, an ANFO bomb, their ingredients are commercially available, so you can smuggle it in pieces. It's going to be, though, exceedingly difficult if this woman, this Black Widow, as they call them, is in the city of Sochi, to find her at this point.
How vulnerable are some of these Olympic venues?
Very vulnerable. Anytime I hear Ring of Steel, I always get nervous. One of the things we constantly see is this conflating of access control with security. Now, they're not mutually exclusive of each other.
What does that mean, conflating of access control?
Well, a ticket for a local Redskins game, as I said on a prior hit here, is an access control device. It's not a security device. Unless the rules of engagement are clear on what you're going to do with a person who shows up without a ticket, the ticket is in fact meaningless. So what I'm getting to is, you may have a Ring of Steel, quote, around your Olympic Village, but if when you leave the Olympic Village, a more holistic plan isn't developed to secure the transportation networks, you effectively have nothing. You're inviting an attack.
House Intelligence Committee Chairman Mike Rogers has been complaining that the Russians are not doing enough to share security information with this country. I want to play what he said and then talk to you about it on the other side. Here it is.
Sure.
They've now moved some 30,000 armed troops down to the region. I mean, that tells you that their level of concern is great, but we don't seem to be getting all of the information we need to protect our athletes in the games. I think this needs to change, and it should change soon.
What do you make of that?
Well, there's a lot to talk about in that. One, brute force security measures, manpower only measures rarely, if ever, work. Remember, they only have to be lucky once, as the IRA once said in the UK. The security force has to be lucky every day. But secondly, having done presidential security for 5 years in my 12-year career, cooperation is an absolute must. And we would have countries that would give up very sensitive information about very sensitive programs because they didn't want to be embarrassed and have the President of the United States hurt or injured in their own country. The fact that the Russians have only admitted 40 FBI agents to audit the security plan in the country, that's unprecedented in the obstruction level there. I would not be comfortable at all advising an athlete to go over there. I don't think it's going to be safe or is safe right now.
You know what? We're going to leave it there. Thank you.
Very welcome.